Welcome to Dental All-Stars. I'm Eric Vickery, lead mastery coach at All-Star Dental Academy and president of Vickery Coaching. I'm excited to interview our guest today, financial advisor Eric Miller. Eric has been in the financial planning industry for over 20 years. He is the co-owner of Econologics Financial Advisors. Did I say it right, Eric?
You got it, man.
All right, awesome. And the chief financial advisor. He has a degree from Capital University and is a registered financial consultant and licensed insurance agent. Whew, that's a lot of things. You got your hands full, don't you?
Keeps my day busy.
Let's see. He takes pride in helping practice owners become the financial heroes of their own stories and has taken his passion to over 600 families in the past decade. During this time, he's had over 15,000 conversations with practice owners regarding money, investing, practice expansion, practice transitions, taxes, asset protection, estate planning, and helping them shape their financial attitude toward abundance. Econologics Financial Advisors is an Inc. 5000 honoree for 2019 as one of the fastest growing companies in the United States. So welcome, Eric.
Hey, thank you. So that's a handful, man. You got through it and you did a really good job.
There's a lot of tongue twisters in there. So, listen, everyone, Eric and I, we've been talking, and he knows that I've been interested, of course, in how to help dentists become more financially successful. I've spent the last 20 years myself trying to figure out how to do that, obviously, on the front end a lot, whether it's, production collections, all that kind of stuff, KPI, all those things we talk about. Mm-hmm. But also some on the expense side. But really, Eric's got a great vantage point on really how to treat your practice like an investment, how to create wealth in it, and really how to value the practice when you're exiting and looking at it as a part of your retirement plan in a healthy way. And my original mentor said, and I don't know if you agree with this, Eric, but he said, the whole point of a business is so that at some point at the end you sell it. And you sell it for profit and you do it the right way. I don't know. Does that make sense?
I do. I think you got to look at, at a business, number one, it's a creation that someone, at some point in time said, I want to create something of value, whatever that is. Right. Mm. And then you are now bestowed with the responsibility to make sure that this thing is going to create value, obviously for not just for your household, but for your patients, for your employees and such. But when you turn it over, I think the idea is that you want to leave it much better than what you found it. And you want to make sure that the next owner is able to carry on that same legacy. You know what I mean? And I think when you start having that viewpoint, like I'm the person responsible for this, so I'm going to make sure that this thing is worth something and then can be transitioned to somebody else for maximum value. That would be my mindset when we're trying to build something.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So let's look at this two phases, because I really want to get into practice transition at the end. But you got my attention with something when you said how to create wealth outside of the practice. And I know that, I get clients who, I think it's a small percentage, they go, I'm kind of burnt out on dentistry. I'm doing this over here, or I'm trying this. How do you maintain dentistry as a passion, but also say, hey, I get it. You want to create some passive income or wealth outside of the practice. What's your advice on that?
Well, I think first things first, when we look at a dentist or a practice, the first thing I look at though is their household, because their household, when you really look at it, is the parent company. In corporate America, you have something called a parent company, and those parent companies own junior assets that are there to serve the needs of that parent company. Well, your household is a parent company, and your business is simply something that's there to serve the financial needs and the responsibilities of the household. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I usually start there, just kind of making sure that the mindset of the business isn't there for me just to be trapped into. It is a entity that's going to provide wealth. It's going to be the engine to me creating other income sources outside of just that particular entity. So that's kind of the first concept, is that the household's the parent company. And then you got to make sure that you set up the systems correctly so that the business cash flow can be channeled correctly to the household, that so that you can create, other income sources, passive income sources, other business entities, real estate, stocks and
Mm,
bonds, insurance product, whatever it is that owner kind of like has affinity for when it comes to investing outside of their business. But they got to make sure that the business is there to really provide that you know that windfall of cash to be able to do that.
yeah. Yeah. I got to be able to buy all the crypto I want without any penalty, right?
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Something's going to do it, and, but that's where we find that a lot of practice owners really aren't paying themselves as they should.
Mm,
And mostly it's in the form of what I call their owner pay. A lot of them pay themselves as practitioners. A lot of them may pay themselves as, maybe executives, but I don't tend to find that a lot of them are really compensating themselves that owner pay. And there's a very simple method of doing that, if you want me to dig into that.
sure. Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, I think a lot of times they think, oh, I don't want to pay myself too much because then there's this tax issue that I've got to pay taxes on, and so I'm afraid to do that. So I'm going to stay right around that $100,000 mark or whatever it is. Whereas if they were an associate getting paid 30%, it'd even be more than that. Let alone the ownership part of it. So yeah, absolutely. Tell us
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. So the first thing that I have every practice owner do is we have them set up an automatic and systematic method in which they take 10% of the practice revenue,
Hmm.
not the profit,
Hmm.
the revenue,
Wow.
that is channeled to some kind of a wealth building plan that is for the benefit of the household. Because look, nobody wants to be reliant upon their business for the rest of their lives, right? Nobody,
Hmm.
no dentist I've ever talked to has said, yeah, I'm going to be reliant upon my business or the sale of my business for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
But there has to be a method, a system in place so that you can do that. And that's been the most workable one that I found, is actually putting it in as an expense. Call it whatever you want to. Call it your owner pay, call it whatever, but it is 10% of your weekly practice revenue should be channeling to the benefit of the household for the specific use of creating other income streams. You can do that for 10 years, man. You will never have any money problems
Hmm.
going forward.
That's great. And you would help them figure out, well, what's your vision, what's your goals, and what does that 10% go to? You're saying too. You'd say, okay, that's going to go into this type of investment or whatever.
Yeah, typically we have it allocated into three different categories, just based upon where I know a lot of dentists like to invest passively, so to speak. But
Hmm.
first off, I usually say of that 10% that we have them rip out, 30%, 33% would go into some kind of real estate endeavor. 33% would go into insurance, some type of insurance products. And then 33% would go into maybe traditional wealth building, stocks, bonds, those kinds of things.
Hmm.
And the reason I do that is because I'm not one of those investment guys that's like tied to just like one philosophy that says that, it's all stocks and that's it, or,
Mm.
it's all insurance. I'm like, no. I found over the years that all of them have a very specific use and applicability. And as long as you're utilizing them correctly, there's not really a bad investment out there. It's just, are you utilizing it correctly as it should? And those are the three categories that we
I
usually
got
get
it.
into.
So that 10%, and I'm thinking as a dentist listening to this right now, how does it hurt me tax wise?
Well, that's a whole other issue because I am good. My goal is to give you a massive tax problem, right? And I think everyone should have the viewpoint of I want to have a tax problem. Give me a tax problem, because that leads into then, okay, how does one minimize their tax liability? And there's tons of strategies out there that that are available that will allow you to do that.
Mm.
But that's going to take, of course, making sure you have a good tax team a good tax strategist, an accountant that just doesn't always say no to everything that comes down the pike. And having, and I just say it like this, minimizing your taxes is not a passive activity at all. You can't just sit back and think that my accountant is gonna make my tax bill lower. They're just not going to do that.
Yeah.
It is something that you have to be very, very proactive about. You have to look at the tax code. You have to take advantage of deductions, and you got to, look at advanced tax strategies. They're out there. They really are. But most people their accountants say, no, 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 don't do that. And they just stop looking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the price of that is, 30 to 40% of your paycheck that goes away.
Which you don't want to be dealing with, right?
Nope, not at all.
All right. So what you're telling me is there is a way to take more money out of my practice like I should be and not have it kill me and feel like it's all just going to taxes if I do it the right way.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely. Yeah. There are super advanced tax strategies that dentists can use, especially if your income is probably like over 400,000 or 500,000, structures that you can set up. And I'm being kind of vague. I can get particular in some of these things, but they're out there. You just have to look, but your income level does have to be at a certain threshold for you to be able to do that. I personally would never restrict my income just because of fear of taxes. Now you live in California, man. I know it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just like 40%, 13.5% state tax. And I'm like, you guys need it more than anything else. But, there are certainly methods out there to do that. And, I can go through a couple of them if you want to.
Well, no, I think it's just good for them to know that there are solutions. I mean, maybe I could practice, I'm not a dentist, but maybe I could, as a dentist, I could practice in California, but live in Florida. Maybe that's what, have a hotel here or something.
That'd be a great idea, but
gosh.
when someone says to me that I think the thing is that don't take the idea that there's nothing that can be done to minimize your taxes, and certainly don't take lazy tax planning. Lazy tax planning is basically this. I'm sure a dentist has had this experience, which is at the end of the year, your accountant says, okay, you got two choices. You can throw all your money in like a 401k plan, or you can spend money on stuff that you don't necessarily need.
Yeah,
that is super that's super lazy tax planning. Okay. So if your accountant says that, you need to get a second opinion.
And I'm assuming you have accountants that you're like, hey, this is where we go, or you refer to, or is it just, hey, search on your own and find a CPA that will get on board with this?
It's really this. It's not only having a good accountant, it's having a tax strategist. Okay. There are tax strategists out there that will find certain areas of the tax code, and they specialize in those areas. And I think that to me is where you have to get a little bit proactive, is finding those tax strategists that will take advantage of that.
Got it.
Like I'll give you an example, and I know this is a bit prevalent in industry, but there's something called a research and development tax credit. I don't know if you ever heard of that before.
R&D,
But yeah, R&D tax credit. So, I mean, but ask how many dentists are actually utilizing that. I mean, that's a credit that, if you demonstrate that you're doing innovations and improvements in certain areas, then you can get a tax credit for that. Okay. But you got to pay someone to come into your office. You got to pay someone to take the time to do that. But at the end of the day, it could be a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 tax credit for you. Okay. But it takes time to do that. And, and I know a lot of dentists just don't have time to do that. But that would be one example right there.
Yeah. That's good, just to be aware, just be conscious of, hey, I have to be fully aware of, I have a bookkeeper. I was talking to a client recently who pays his CPA a lot, and come to find out the CPA nor the doctor were even balancing the checkbook, and therefore lost money. And I'm like, well, who's doing this? We need to get on top of things. And embarrassingly, this has been a client that I've had for many, many years, and how this slipped through my fingers, I don't know either. And honestly, the only way we found out was one of the insurance companies sent a notice saying, hey, if you don't cash this check, it's going to be voided after time. We're like, what? Where did this check go? And it was, what happened was we were doing the digital scan. This client was doing a digital scan into the bank, and the bank never received the deposits. There was never any deposit correction. And so it's like you have to have a team of people who are on top of things. And to hear
100%.
about a tax strategist is, I think, great advice. I like it. So
Yeah.
that leads me into the next hot topic that personally as a coach I've been dealing with, having done this for 20 years now, clients I've had for this long are now moving to that stage of their career where they're ready to sell. And now it's this, oh my gosh, there's this huge check that's going to come my way when I sell my practice, and I'm going to be paying capital gains. That's what I keep hearing. How do I avoid capital gains and all this kind of stuff? And obviously it's better to be proactive than reactive. So Eric, share with us your thoughts on how do you do this in a way, how do you have a strategy in a way that doesn't kill us on the tax side, and how do we financially plan for this well and exit so we maximize the value of this transition?
Where do you want to go with that? Do you want to talk about the exit part?
Sure. Yeah, let's start there. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So, I mean, first and foremost, when you're looking to exit, I mean, you got two questions to ask yourself. Number one, am I emotionally ready for the exit? Number two, am I financially prepared for the exit? And those are typically the two questions that one would ask themselves before I would even entertain it. I think the worst time to make a decision on whether to exit is when you kind of feel that burnout. You've probably heard that term before.
Oh yeah.
And for me, that comes from people that aren't getting compensated correctly based upon all the hard work and effort they're putting into an endeavor. But be that as it may, I would never, ever, ever, ever sell my business when I felt like I was burnt out. Because I can probably tell you that the value of that business is not going to be anywhere near as high, because people let things slip through the crack, and you're just, I don't want to work as hard anymore. I'm not going to see as many patients, and you start seeing your revenue decline. And the last 2 years of your ownership, you want to see your highest growth rate and your highest profit margins at that point. Okay. Because if I'm a buyer, I don't want to buy something that's dying.
Yep.
And I'm certainly not going to give you a fat paycheck or a fat check for something that's going like this, that's going downhill.
And I see it. I had a client tell me, and I was looking at the numbers. I'm looking at the numbers and going, why are these numbers going down? And finally he tells me, well, I stopped doing exams in the hygiene room. I'm like, what? Why didn't we talk about this? You just made this decision to stop doing exams. Like, where's the dentistry coming from? It's no wonder things are on a decline. And then I have other clients who contact me I haven't worked with, and in preparation for this, they're saying, all right, it's time for me to, I need someone to kick me in the pants and get things going in the right direction so I can build that value. And that's where they need to be.
They need someone to do that prior to sell. So if your practice is really, really booming and humming and purring, and and most people are like, why would I want to sell it at that point in time? Just because it's, but that's the time you're going to be like, okay, this is where it's at its highest value.
Sell high
at that point. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I think those are a couple things there, but in terms of planning for the actual exit, obviously it's going to take some time. And for us, we specialize in making sure that you have a good asset protection plan, because you're going to get all this money. And the last thing you want to do is open yourself up to an attack of some kind. And and just making sure that the investments that you choose are going to be those things that are going to pay you to own them. When I look at an investment, that's a big thing for me. It's like, this thing better pay me to own it. And then not getting too super speculative. Obviously if you have some extra money to do that, but just make sure that the household is debt free, protected, has multiple income streams, and you're set for life, and then you can go on and do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I would have that plan in place
beforehand.
Oh yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's
what I was going to ask you.
The worst thing that happens that I've seen is someone gets a check for $5 million or $8 million or $10 million or $2 million, whatever it is, and it either sits in an account earning nothing because the person's too terrified to invest the money, Okay. Or they go to their Uncle Bob or, some other person in their, hey, what do I do with all this money? And it ends up getting invested in ways, and you're just like,
An
you bought an
offshore Ponzi scheme or something.
you bought an oil well in Belize.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
All right, let me mark that down.
Yeah.
Don't buy an oil well in
Don't
Belize.
buy an
Yeah.
oil well in Belize. So look, I mean, you can be intelligent. You can set aside some money for kind of like speculating in certain things.
Mm.
But by and large, I would have 90% of that money allocated, knowing exactly where it's going to go prior to the sell. So that way, when the money hits your account, it gets deployed in these different investments, and you can just move on with your life and do whatever it is that you're going to do.
Yeah.
Call me crazy. That just seems like a much more intelligent way to do it.
Well, and there's so much, speaking from a dentist standpoint, let's just use the average practice, $1 million practice.
Yeah.
And the value is somewhere between $600,000 to $850,000. And so I have a client, he just told me he just bought a practice, like his third location. He's combining two into the third. He's very business savvy.
Yep.
But the seller, he's old school. And the seller's all panicky talking about how, he's got this $700,000 check and he's freaking out about, he has a $700,000 bill to pay for taxes.
Capital gains.
And he's freaking out about it. It's like, and the transaction's already happened. And I'm thinking to myself, for that sticker price, there has to have been something that he could have done beforehand so that it wasn't either that painful or he was just more prepared for it. I mean, what do you say to that?
There are. And I think, and again, I just got off the phone with someone too, that where they went to a number of people that said, no, there's nothing you can do about capital gains tax. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. I'm like, man, there's always something you can do about it. So again, one of the specialties that we have is because I had this problem early on. People started selling their business. They were, Eric, I got $2 million of capital gain tax. What do I do? So I have to start researching this, right? So I have to start finding, and then this is where I get in contact with tax strategists, and there's something called a monetized installment sale. I'm going to kill you with financial terms here. But and I'm not going to get into the details of it or anything like that, just so you know.
Yeah.
But it is a way for you to sell your business to be able to keep 93.5% of the sale proceeds up front and defer your capital gain tax for 30 years. Okay. Now, big corporations have utilized this strategy in the past. So it's not something that I'm just pulling out of my, what. There is a right way. There's a wrong way to do any of these strategies. You need professionals to set these up correctly. You need probably an attorney to write a letter to the IRS and all these things that need to be done. But at the end of the day, I mean, you're in California, right? So I'd say that you sell a capital asset, you're 40% of that, or at least 35% of it's going to go bye-bye. Right. So you can either say, okay, well, we'll implement this strategy where I get to keep at least 93.5% of the sale proceeds. I still owe the tax in 30 years. I still have to pay the tax in 30 years, but I get the value of this money for that period of time to invest it how I see fit. And then I pay the tax in 30 years. So,
wow. So you're blowing my mind right now. My fingers are on fire here. So in 30 years, I'm dead.
Yeah.
I sell my practice at 72. In 30 years, I'm no longer here. So I guess you got that already figured out too.
Yeah, we do. I mean, it would be something that would transfer to a liability to your estate. But really, all you do is either get like a life insurance policy of some kind that would be there designated to handle the tax situation if you died. That's all you would do. So it's we've done probably, I'd say maybe 5 or 6 of these, and I've had people that have been able to buy beach homes and have been able to have an extra chunk of cash that they otherwise would have had to pay in capital gains.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, that's just good advice, and it just gives people hope. Now, let me ask you a question. Yeah. I'm listening to this. I sold my practice. I got this capital gains. It's too late.
It's too late.
It's too late.
So this is where, again, any kind of capital gain strategy, you have to make sure that you research and you do them prior to the sale, because at the sale, when you actually sell the stock or the business or whatever, and you take receipt of the money, now you've constructively taken receipt of the money, the capital gain tax is owed. So if you're going to do any kind of planning like this, it needs to be done prior to the sale. And you need at least I'd say a good month to prepare for something like that. But
Yeah.
it can be done. It can be done.
Awesome. Awesome. I just love that you're giving people who are listening some advice to go, okay, so there's an option for me. I don't need to stress so much about this. I just need to find the right team and I need to be proactive about it, right?
Yeah, you just need to have people that are, that are specialized in working with practice owners.
Yeah.
And to me, that's always been kind of a key thing, is that you work with industry specific people, because they have a lot of experience in working with other types of practices,
Yeah.
and they know the ins and outs. And I just think that's a much more intelligent way to build your team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And look, we all want to save money. We all want to take care of our families. Like you talk about the household, we all want to be really thinking about how the end is of our business career is going to go. When is it too soon to be thinking about this, or like I'm still paying off school debt and all this kind of stuff? Like, what point in my career am I thinking about this process? Am I waiting until, like you said, maybe the last 2 years, or am I more now? I mean, is there ever a time to say, oh, it's too soon?
No, I have people start right away.
Mm,
I have people start thinking about what their exit strategy is right away. And it doesn't mean anything else besides, the same reason why you decided to start a business, would be the same reason that you would say, okay, how I'm going to exit out of this business to go to do something else. And so I think starting a transition plan would be something that I would start in any phase of ownership, even if you're just 2 years into it, or if you're mid-career, or if you're 5 years from retirement. There's nothing wrong with looking at and say, who's my buyer going to
yep.
be? What are
Yep.
the terms that I want to sell for? And just kind of like write all this stuff down. You'd be surprised when you go back that you're like, wow, all this kind of lined up. But I don't think it's too early to ever do that.
Well, just like with life coaching or business coaching, executive coaching, KPI coaching that we do, it all starts with vision and goals and knowing what you want to do and having a plan for it. Obviously, there can be some roadblock to that, but what are the tactics to achieve those visions and goals? And you're just saying the same thing on the financial side.
It's 100%. And the one thing you can control is the value of your business. I mean, you do have control over that. You have control over, new patients coming in, or you have control over your profitability. You have control over all the quality of your office, how well it looks. You have control over all the value of your business.
Mm.
You don't have control over a stock that you buy on the New York Stock Exchange, but you do have control over your business value. So I would spend 80% of my time just creating something that is going to be valuable to somebody else, and that would be the mindset.
So true. So true. Love it. Love it. So as we come to the end of this podcast, this has really been educational for me. I've been taking notes like you wouldn't believe. Is there something that you would add to it? Say, look, you're listening to this. You're in the middle of selling your practice, or you're at the stage of your career. What's the best piece of advice you could give someone listening right now? Or it could be anything, really.
I would say this. I think the biggest issue that I see most practice owners they operate on the wrong numbers. And when I say that is that most people underestimate how much they need in income, assets, and resources to really live the life that they want to live.
Mm,
And I see a lot of practice owners that are not getting their business to its true facility capacity, production level, than what it actually could.
mm,
Okay. So if I was someone, I would really, the first thing I would look at is say, I have this facility. How much could it do? What's my potential in this facility? That would be my number one goal. right? And then I would make sure that the number I'm operating on as far as what I need to create solvency is not too low. And it includes my buffers, my profits, that 10% we talked about, my taxes, all these things, so that I know I'm not operating on the wrong numbers. And
Yeah.
I think that's, there's two golden rules of expenses that we can end off with that I tend to find are pretty true. Number one, a business is going to try to spend every dollar that it makes and then some, right? And but it will also make the amount of money it thinks it needs to make to cover its most vital expenses. Okay. And so I think the way that you have profit, the way that you have reserves, the way that you can, do all the things that you want to do outside of the business is just make sure that you incorporate all of those profit centers as bills. Treat them as bills. And you put them in there, and it makes the number, the right number that you're operating with, always with the goal of getting to whatever my capacity level would be in my practice, because that's going to provide the most value not only to your household but to the value of the business as well. So that would be where I would.
Let me translate into dental lease. So basically what you're saying is, hey, I've got things outside the practice that I need to afford that will be profit centers for me. I need to include that as, well, I need to collect this much money from my business then. If I'm going to add those things on top of it, it's icing on the cake. I'm not just looking at payroll and lab and rent. I'm looking at that 10%, that retirement, whatever it is. Now I need to collect this much. Now I take that collection number and I say, okay, if I need to collect this much, how much do I need to produce? And what is my facility? What is my practice able to do for me in order to achieve that?
That's right.
And so now this is where I get excited, because I can look at the numbers in a practice and go, wow, we're only producing this per patient, this per hour. Why is that? And then we start talking about things like, well, we're taking X amount of time to see patients, and it's either too little, too much, or case acceptance, whatever it is. There's inefficiencies in the business, and that's what we can help protect, to get the production to a number so we can collect it, so that you can help them advise on how to spend it properly to create those profit centers for the household.
Exactly. You put a demand on a business for money, right? That's what it's there for. Again, it's an asset of the household. So the household starts with here and says, how much money does this household need to operate and do all the things they want to do? Okay, great. This is what my business needs to produce for me to be able to do that. Okay. Am I close right now? No, I'm $20,000 a month short from where I need to be. Okay, great. That's the problem. So now I got to bridge that gap. And just like you said, now we got to go in there and say, how many more surgeries do we need to do a week? How many more patients do we need to see? Do we need to up our prices? What do we need to do to be able to do that? And that's the game.
Yeah.
That's the game.
And if you're listening to this, I'll get on a soapbox for a moment. You have to stop feeling stuck, because there is a way to care for people. You got into dentistry because you wanted to care for people. You wanted to get them healthier. And you have this self-imposed pressure to feel like, I can't be too profitable. I don't deserve it. I don't have an abundance mentality with income. You first need to get over that part of it and learn how to do it in such a way that is a huge blessing to your patients, but it's equally a blessing to your family, your business, and your team. And that's doable. And you can do that without having to bend over backwards for insurance companies, by charging a fair price, by doing dentistry the right way, and without having to feel like you're selling people on something they don't, quote, need. And that's what we're here to help you with on that end. And people like Eric are here to help you with how to obviously benefit your whole household and get outside of your bubble. So this has been great. I've really enjoyed our fireside chat here.
You said that beautifully at the end, man. That was good. That was
Yeah, people got to get out of their own self-imposed restrictions and that approval addiction to see that themselves being better. So, obviously All-Star can help you with that when it comes to coaching. So you're welcome to email Heather at allstardentalacademy.com, and we'll show you how we can help, whether it's KPI coaching, verbal skills training, everything to help you grow your practice. And then you've got Eric Miller here, people like this who can help you out, and they can go to where to look for you, Eric.
So they can go to econologics.com. Or they can go to wealthfordentists.com.
Nice. Wealthfordentist.com. That's easy to remember. I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. And for those listening, thank you for joining us and taking the time to invest in yourself. Obviously, we'd love it if you'd share this podcast with your friends, those that obviously can benefit from this sort of information. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. And next time, let's make sure that we stay focused on how to make our practice just more successful and give to others, but just be sure that you're taking care of yourself first in your house. Does that sound like a good summation, Eric?
That is perfect right there.
All right.
Yeah.
So until next time, go out there and be an all-star.